9 and 20 of the principles enshrined in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, that's the UN CRPD, also stipulate the obligation on the inclusion of accessible spaces for white cane users. Sustainable Development Goal number 11 on accessible cities and human settlements further buttress these principles. International White Cane Safety Day is, pardon me, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, cognizant of the lack of proper regard by motorists and other road users for the role that the white cane represents, and in a bid to support and better promote awareness of the needs and challenges faced by us white cane users in Kenya, it is necessary for certain actions to be taken. To this end, Speaker, it has become imperative that the National Transport and Safety Authority and the National Construction Authority and the Kenya Roads Board fully adopt universal design standards and principles in our transport systems and across the built environments. In this statement, Speaker, this committee should explain any measures taken by the Ministry of Roads and Transport and the KRB to facilitate the development and enforcement of globally universal design regulations across Kenya's roads networks to provide essential safety for blind and visually impaired persons. Outline any steps taken by KRB and NCA to ensure the construction of tactile markers, consistency in working street lights, sonic traffic lights, drop curbs across the country, safe crossing points on our roads, frequency in clear disabled parking slots, and universally designed walkways that facilitate the safe use of white cane users countrywide. And finally, state the strategies the ministry has put in place to sensitize and train motorists to yield the right of way to every white cane user, and to further develop and adequate awareness programs on the white cane as a form of non-motorized transport, NMT, within the National Driving Training Curriculum, and to ensure all motorists and traffic authorities adhere to traffic rules to keep blind and visually impaired persons safe on the roads. I thank you.
The Chairperson Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations, you had a report to lay on the table. You may proceed to lay the report. Senator Bass, are you ready to lay the paper? All right, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper report of the Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations, Amendment Bill number 12 of 2024. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 8, motion, report of the Kenya delegation to the 147th and 148th assemblies of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, and related meetings held in Luanda, Angola, from 23rd to 27th October 2023, and in Geneva, Switzerland, from 23rd to 27th March 2024.
Order, honorable senators. For those of you who are standing, please take your seat. Now, honorable clerk, before I put the question, kindly confirm that indeed we have the requisite quorum pursuant to Standing Order 42? We do? Now, honorable senators, I'll proceed to put the question that the Senate notes the report of the Kenya delegation to the 147th and 148th Assemblies of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, and related meetings held in one, Luanda, Angola from the 23rd to 27th of October 2023, and laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, the 29th of February 2024. And two, Geneva, Switzerland from the 23rd to the 27th of March 2024, and laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, the 30th May of 2024. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Senator Fernandez, you cannot vote both ways. Next order.
Order number 9, the Political Parties Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 26 of 2024, second reading division.
That order is deferred. Next order.
Order number 10, the Election Offences Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 28 of 2024, second reading division.
The Majority Leader, kindly approach the chair. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 11, motion, consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills
called,
number 19 of 2024.
Clerk, have you called order number 10? Okay. So that order is, do we have the chairperson? Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. Senator Boni, you may proceed to move. Senator Boni, proceed to move the motion, please.
Order number 11. Give me the wrong one. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to move motion number 11 on the order paper, being consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the county government's additional allocations bill, Senate bills number 19 of 2024, on behalf of the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, that the National Assembly amendments to the county government's additional allocations bill, Senate bill number 19 of 2024, be now considered. Mr. Speaker, we were assist of this matter, and we've been able, Mr. Speaker, to go through all the steps in accordance with our mandate. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank all the 9 members of the committee for the commitment to the work that was before us. And Mr. Speaker, in view of what is going on, Mr. Speaker, the minds of many of my colleagues have now been switched into, Mr. Speaker, the forthcoming motion on the impeachment of the Deputy President of Kenya. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to make it light for everybody and just request all of them to familiarize themselves with this report and, if possible, to agree with the committee and pass it without proposals for any amendment. Mr. Speaker, I invite the distinguished senator from Mombasa, Senator Wakili Faki, to second my motion. Mheshimiwa Spika, asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuunga mkono ripoti ya kamati ya fedha na bajeti ya bunge hili kuhusiana na sheria ya additional allocations, county additional allocations bill. Mheshimiwa Spika, kamati iliangalia marekebisho ambayo yalikuwa yamependekezwa na bunge la kitaifa kuhusiana na mswada huu wa sheria, na tukaona kwamba bunge la kitaifa lilifanya makosa kuhusiana na masuala hayo. Kwanza ni kuwa walipunguza fedha ambazo zinatoka katika serikali ya kitaifa kuja katika serikali za kaunti. Jambo la pili ni kuwa hata zile fedha ambazo wanakusanya kwa niaba ya kaunti zetu, kwa mfano faini ambazo zinalipwa kwa makosa yanayohusiana na sheria za kaunti ambazo inakusanywa na mahakama, zile pia wamezipunguza. Mheshimiwa Spika, fedha hizi ni fedha ambazo zinastahili kwenda katika mfuko wa serikali zetu za kaunti, kwa zile serikali ambazo zina mahakama. Kwa mfano, kaunti ya Mombasa kuna mahakama, hapa Nairobi kuna mahakama ambayo inatekeleza ama inasimamia mashtaka yale ambayo yanafanyika kuhusiana na sheria za kaunti. Kwa mfano, mtu anajenga nyumba bila ya kuchukua kibali cha kaunti, ama makosa kama ya vile ya wafanyabiashara kuendeleza biashara bila ya leseni. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, pesa hizo zinatakana zije mikononi moja kwa moja kwa kaunti zetu, lakini fedha zile zimeweza kuzuiliwa na serikali za kaunti na hivyo basi pesa hizo sasa haziwezi kuja katika kaunti zetu. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna malumbukizi ya pesa hizi, Kwa hivyo wakikataa, wakisema kwamba pesa hizo ziondolewe katika orodha ya fedha ambazo zinakuja kwa kaunti zetu, inakuwa ni makosa kwa kaunti zetu, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuweza kutekeleza majukumu yake. Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono ripoti hii na ningeomba bunge hili liweze kuikubali na kuipitisha kwa sababu inatoa mwelekeo kuhusiana na vile ambavyo kaunti zetu zitaweza kupata fedha. Kwa hususan Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia kwa sasa karibu kwa zaidi ya miezi minne sasa serikali zetu za kaunti haziweza kupata fedha kwa sababu msaada wa fedha wa mwaka 2024-2025 uliweza kufutiliwa mbali. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hii sheria ambayo tulikuwa tumepitisha ingesaidia pakubwa kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba zile fedha ndogo ndogo ambazo zilikuwa zimepangwa kupelekwa zimeweza kupelekwa. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Sotsi, kindly take your seat. Honorable Senators, I will now propose the question that the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024, be now considered. The floor is now open. The Honorable Senator Olekina Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by saying that this House shall fight for devolution. You know, it's a bit hypocritical that in this era, we are talking about devolution, devolving funds to our counties, talking about accountability.
Senator
Yet,
Fernande,
Mr. Speaker,
may the Senator Fonaro be heard in silence.
It seems as though the national government, perpetuated by the National Assembly, is eager to make sure that they deny county governments money. Mr. Speaker, the distinguished senator from Mandera and his committee have continuously reminded this House that when it comes to the issues of resources, all of us must stand firm and reject in totality the work which is done by the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, our county governments have got roads, you know, feeder roads. We talk about a county like Narok, which is one of the counties that feeds this nation. Our feeder roads, we produce almost 80% of the wheat in this country. Our feeder roads are dilapidated. And now, Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly comes in and decides those additional grants, they are not worth it. Seriously, I think somebody has got to drill some sense into the minds of our colleagues in the National Assembly who are really negating on their role of representation. It doesn't matter whether you represent citizens from the National Assembly or from the county. Ultimately, the county governments are the ones that will develop this nation. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to beseech all of us that the road maintenance levy fund is very, very important. This is a fund that has continued to help our communities. I can see, Anita, you okay? All right. So I think all of us sitting here, you need to remember Article 123. You vote by delegation. You need to remember that if you come here and not think about your county will continue suffering. As long as I'm here and God has given me air to breathe, I will always make sure that I fight for more monies to go to my counties. Because I want to see roads from Mount Narok being repaired. When you go there, you'll find that counties will tell you, we have no money to fix these roads because the National Assembly has removed these roads. So this is the time that we now redefine devolution. What is devolution? Every time we sit here and we lament, and then when a motion comes from the National Assembly, we are quick to pass it. This is an opportunity for us to be able to put our foot down, even for those who will go into mediation, because I want to persuade all of us here that we reject those amendments in totality. When you go into mediation, you put your foot down. Because if we cannot fix our county government's roads, then what else are we doing? Mr. Speaker, there are counties that are still struggling to be able to build their county headquarters. There are grants there to support these counties to be able to complete these county headquarters. There are counties also that, I remember Senator Faki came here, we moved a motion, we agreed to allocate Mombasa few more resources for them to be able to build the sports complex there. I think we need to ask ourselves whether everything should be concentrated in the national government and what impact that will have in the communities. We talk about all funds, come into the issue of revenue share. They want to reduce that. Division of revenue, I've never seen anywhere where we are talking about amendments when there is a law which is in existence. Now our counties are crying. They have no money for anything. Sometimes you find that even doctors are going on strike. And then when you follow the doctor, the governors will tell you, we have no money to pay them. So if we are not diligent and very careful in our work, we will be sitting here and warming our chairs here. So from today, I want to beseech all of you that anytime when you see a bill coming from the National Assembly that has got to do with resources, think of it as a problem and you have a hammer, and think of it as a nail, just hammer it down, poop, so that we can move forward, knowing that these distinguished men and women will fight for their counties. If we do not fight for our counties, even the future generations will laugh at us. What were all those old men doing there? They'll be pointing at the bullfighter and saying, bullfighter, what were you fighting for? You could not be able to help me get a road. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I saw a statistics of how many houses are built out of mud in this country. It was very sad that my own county of Narok, 60% of homesteads are built out of mud. When are we going to be able to leapfrog and do away with Stone Age issues? Our forefathers lived in mud houses. Even us now in the 21st century, we are still wearing good designer suits and everything, and our people are still living in mud houses. Come on. There's a ripple effect. If the road is bad, there's no development in that area. If there are no money to build county headquarters, people will just be living there, not thinking about how to develop. So in a few words, Mr. Speaker, it is imperative that all of us here, and especially head of delegations, when you're sitting down, you should have a clear picture of your county. In fact, when you sit there, in all your urban areas, you should have a spatial plan. What does my county look like? How many buildings are there? How many roads are there? If you go to your sub-counties, how many feeder roads are there? That is when you will know that it behooves you to fight hard so that not a single penny is deducted from those funds. You cannot remove those funds. Recently, Mr. Speaker, we were being told that in the budget committee of the National Assembly, that our colleagues there will make sure that their constituencies have a lot of money, and they'll fight for it. I'm sure my sister Paris was a member of parliament back then. She would be like, she'd want to be in that budget committee to make sure that some money goes to Kajiado. But now, my sister, you're here in the Senate. Those people will still want money for themselves. Now what will happen to you? They will deduct the little money which is going into counties. So unless we are all cognizant of the fact that we are here to fight for our counties, we will end up being a laughingstock. So this is the time when we break the protocol and come up with hats, and I'm willing to sponsor, that says reject. And you just sit down there and you say reject. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind all those who I'm sure, I believe, will eventually go to the mediation committee, that you have a duty. When you go back home and you drive your car, you're lucky, you can drive an SUV. There are those people who are stuck in a pro box or in a border in a dilapidated road. Your SUV will be able to go through, but think of yourself as that person who has been bundled up in a pro box, or there are like 3 or 4 people in a motorbike who are going through bumps and bumps and bumps. Think about their generations, whether there'll be any. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reject.
Senator Ali Roba.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. My apologies for coming in a bit late. I just wanted to take this opportunity for purpose of making sure that honorable senators are on the same page on this issue of the county additional allocation bill and why we have to reject the bill as amended by the National Assembly. Honorable senators, what gives us the moral authority to be able to criticize our county governments is if we as senators do our responsibilities, sworn responsibilities of protecting devolution at all cost. And that is the only time we'll be able to have the moral authority to be able to say, my governor has not done this or he has done that. Now, road maintenance levy fund is a fund. It's collected by Kenya Roads Board. It's supposed to maintain national trunk roads and county roads. Now the entire 10.5 billion shilling has been removed from county additional allocation. It's the first time. About 2 years ago, erroneously, that money was lumped up into division of revenue and alleged that it is part of division of revenue. We fought very hard, the Senate as well as also the Council of Governors, to indicate this is a fund appropriated by an act of parliament and it cannot be lumped up under the division of revenue. And then allocation was done under county additional allocation as it ought to be for the last 11 years. And that money is 10.5 billion shilling. Counties are not getting revenues. There is no additional allocation. The inflation rate in county governments is very high. What they're getting as additional allocation every year in division of revenue is not even able to cater for the inflationary percentage of about 6% that comes automatically without anything being done. Now, the National Assembly has gone ahead to remove the entire road maintenance levy fund of 10.5 billion shilling. They have again moved further in reducing a national government project initiated by the national government, that is the community health promoters, which was allocated 3.2 billion shilling. The staff have already been recruited. The county additional allocation, and this is payroll number 3.2, that money has been reduced to 2.58. That will be able to only cater for 86,133 community health promoters, as opposed to 107,831 community health promoters that are already working in our county government. Honorable Senators, Mr. Speaker, funds that have already been realized, like the transfer of museum function, which funds follow functions. The functions have been transferred, the funds are left, 30.1 million shilling has been removed. But even more absurd is court fines. A collection has already taken place. It is a realized money. It's not about projected revenues. The courts have already collected fines using county legislation. The fines that as a result of county legislation, it's already been collected. But these funds have been removed from county additional allocation. I mean, what logical reason can we give as a Senate to be able to rationalize with a fact that money already collected on behalf of the county government by the courts have been removed out of, that, and we say, oh, it is austerity measure and such other issues. It can work. Issues to do with mineral royalty, funds collected already on behalf of county government amounting to 1.1 billion shilling. That money has also been removed. It's collected. It's not about, and it's supposed to be just appropriated in percentages in line with the law. It has been removed. Honorable senators, this Senate over the last 1 year worked extremely hard in consultation with every critical stakeholder on the issue of supplement for county, headquarters for 5 counties. And eventually, in consultation with the CS National Treasury, and through this Senate, we were able to really arbitrate a situation where these 5 counties that were promised by the national government to be financed to construct their county headquarters. This project has stalled for over 8 years. Eventually, the 5 governors wrote to the Senate. They requested if the funds, the little allocation from the national government can be transferred to them, and they can top up and finish their county headquarters. That process took us 8 months. Eventually, the National Treasury, Intergovernmental Technical Committee, Public Works, the governors themselves, and the Senate agreed, and the transfer was done so that these 5 counties are able to complete their county headquarters. 528 million shilling that was in the previous county additional allocation and this county additional allocation that the governors have already signed and accepted. They will top up whatever that is missing for them to finish their county headquarters, now has been insensitively removed. And so that project remains stalled for additional years without any consideration. And those are the critical issues, honorable senators and Mr. Speaker, sir, that I felt this honorable Senate needs to know in terms of why we should reject, and this bill heads to mediation. And that is what we are presenting to you. Thank you very much. I submit.
Senator for Nairobi City County, Senator Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, I increasingly grow proud of our Committee on Finance and Budget because the members need to keep calm because I don't think they will be very happy with what is about to come next. Honorable Speaker, I was a bit worried at the beginning of the term of this Parliament that we had departed from our constitutional duty to be the protectors of counties and their governments, as stipulated under the Constitution. I think it is Article 96. Honorable Speaker, let me borrow the words of the Minority Whip, that in fact this Senate must at every single opportunity stand up to protect devolution and devolved units, and that every step that has been made in advancing the cause of devolution must be protected, and that no single step back must be allowed. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support the report that has come from the committee that is ably chaired by Senator Roba, because, Honorable Chair, what the National Assembly has tried to do in the amendments to this particular bill is to reduce a total of 45 billion shillings from the additional allocation to county governments. Honorable senators who have spoken before me have spoken about the reduction in RMLF of 10.5 billion shillings. But Honorable Speaker, if you look at the totality of the reductions, there are some things that I am sure even members of the National Assembly themselves will not be able to justify. For instance, Honorable Speaker, they have cut 7.4, is it million or billion? Million from court fines. Honorable Speaker, you know some of our county governments actually run city courts to enforce local authority laws. And this money is collected from the residents of those areas. Like here in Nairobi, we have our own city court. And Honorable Speaker, there can be no justification for why that money should be retained at the national level. Honorable Speaker, the second one that has caught my eye is a reduction of 1.1 billion Kenya shillings on mineral royalties. I mean, this is something that is in the law that counties are entitled to a percentage, and it's a very small percentage of the mineral wealth that is exploited in the areas. And therefore, this is something that we cannot support as a House. And the most interesting one, Honorable Speaker, the reduction of the allocation to county health promoters from 3.2 billion Kenya shillings to 2.5 billion shillings. Honorable Speaker, this is something, a program that was launched with much fanfare here at Uhuru Park by none other than the President himself. And how will he explain, Honorable Speaker? Because as the committee rightfully notes, this 4.5 billion shillings, no, the 3.2 billion shillings, or the reduced to 2.5 billion shillings, is only enough for 86,133 community health promoters, Honorable Speaker. And we have a total of 107,831 of these community health promoters. What that tells you is that 22,000 community health promoters would have no pay for the next financial year. And this is something that we cannot countenance, Honorable Speaker. This is a step that we had already taken. And there are very serious players in the attainment of universal health care. And Honorable Speaker, this is something we cannot support. On behalf of the CHVs of Nairobi, I will vote to oppose any reduction in the monies that was allocated for CHVs. Honorable Speaker, the RMLF reduction of 10.5 billion Kenya shillings is, as the committee rightfully notes, a contravention of the Constitution. Because if under Schedule 4, a role is defined to be a county role, then it follows the constitutional principle requires that that role be financed. For you to remove the entire RMLF allocation for county roads under Schedule 4 is a contravention of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, in the 2023-2024 financial year, the industrial parks, counties had been allocated 4.5 billion shillings for industrial parks. And of course, they were launched with much fanfare. I remember, Honorable Speaker, receiving a phone call from my mother in the village there, that right across from her house, the President was there launching an industrial park, and that she was going to have, in her own words, a place to sell her milk and a place to sell her chicken. Honorable Speaker, for all the counties that were supposed to benefit from these industrial parks, they only received a total of 1.12 billion Kenya shillings, even despite the allocation of 4.5 billion. So counties that were expecting 250 million for industrial parks only received 62 million Kenya shillings. And Honorable Speaker, if you had allowed me, I have a photo on my phone that my mother sent me this afternoon of that site where the President launched with much fanfare across from her house. And Honorable Speaker, everything has stalled, and there is no hope for her ever getting a market for a chicken or even the milk. Honorable Speaker, protect me from a majority leader. I'm surprised that the Senator for Nandi wants to insert himself in the communications between myself and my mother. And Honorable Speaker, therefore, we as a House must in totality take the position that there is absolutely no justification for these things. And as I said, even during the debate on the division of revenue, the practice has always been that any shortfall in revenue must be borne by the national government. These programs are critical. If you are going to tell 22,000 CHPs that they are no longer going to earn the 5,000 shillings that they are supposed to earn, Honorable Speaker, it is going to be something of a mountain, akin to a mountain to climb. Because how do you select the ones to earn and the ones not to earn? The ones to be cut from the program and the ones to be retained. Therefore, I want to agree totally with the proposal that has come from the Committee on Budget and Finance that we must reject in total any attempts to reduce the basket of devolution as has been proposed by the National Assembly. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join my colleagues in appreciating the very diligent work of our Budget and Finance Committee. I have not hidden from this House my admiration of the work done by this committee that I served in my formative years as a legislator, and I continue to appreciate the diligence with which they execute the very critical responsibility bestowed upon them by the Constitution and our standing orders, Mr. Speaker. This committee, Mr. Speaker, has proven over the last few sessions of this Senate, Mr. Speaker, that when called upon to stand up for devolution, they do so with much zest, Mr. Speaker. And I want to appreciate the members of this committee, all those that make the committee sittings, while Senator Sifuna was a bit more generous with his platitudes, celebrating the committee. I have curiously noted, actually, that if you look through the Budget and Finance Committee, as Majority Leader always, Mr. Speaker, I'm keen to see who are the members that sign on to the report. It gives you an idea of who's present in these meetings. You will consistently note that actually it's almost on or about the same people, about 5 or 6 out of the 9 that are members of this committee that do this work. I celebrate those members, Mr. Speaker, and the leadership of Captain Ali Roba, Mr. Speaker. This proposal, I'll go straight to the recommendations, Mr. Speaker, because I don't need to repeat many of the brilliant things that have been said by colleagues who have spoken ahead of me, other than to appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that the findings of this committee are quite impressive, that they have been able to pinpoint the exact pressure points for our counties, Mr. Speaker. You know, even without a fight of saying we need to add money here and there, you need to first identify allocations that are already set out in law, that is already specified and said X amount of money go to our counties, like the mineral royalties, Mr. Speaker. It's defined in law already, so there's nothing to fight about. So sometimes you look at bills that come from the National Assembly and you wonder. I know for a fact, because I served as Chair of Staff Welfare, Mr. Speaker, that Parliament is made up of perhaps the most competent personnel and human resource you can find in this republic and even beyond, Mr. Speaker. So what happens when you serve in the National Assembly? Because I know our staff are diligent. When I served in committees, there are many things that, for example, we'd wish to insert into bills, but our clerks, the legal persons that serve with us in those committees, they will expressly guide us and help us appreciate that this is outright unconstitutional, this is outright against the provisions of the law. So when you find a reduction to royalties that have already been collected, 1.06 billion, and proposed, and it passes, and that committee that consider this bill has a lawyer, has a legislative drafter, Mr. Speaker, has a clerk who understand all these things. No, I'm not focused on the political class, Mr. Speaker, because I know what happens in committees sometimes, but just thinking through provisions of law that are already set out. Because, Mr. Speaker, and it's important that members appreciate, conditional, additional, what is it called, the bill? The county government's additional allocations bill is a brainchild of this House. About 2 years ago, that previously we used to do $1 and you'd have separate divisions for additional allocation. But we felt that it was important, Mr. Speaker, because some of these allocations come midway through the year, that we have a standalone bill that helps Senate and institutions of oversight, Mr. Speaker, to have a more clearer view of both conditional and unconditional grants to our counties, Mr. Speaker, that we felt were getting lost in between the other broader allocations, county government's allocation to our counties, Mr. Speaker, where there was a better focus. In fact, Mr. Speaker, pointing out the errors in this bill, the very glaring ones, like the one I've spoken to, justifies the thinking that went into doing a separate bill by the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Because believe you me, if we were still doing $1 that has both the shareable revenue and the conditional and unconditional allocation, Mr. Speaker, as was the case previously, Mr. Speaker, then it will be difficult to pinpoint some of these errors. But the Senate made a wise decision, very wise one. And reading through this report, Mr. Speaker, you appreciate actually why it was important for us to have this separate distinction between shareable revenue and this conditional and unconditional grants to our counties, Mr. Speaker, because it is only when we begin to deal with this item by item, you know, Mr. Speaker, that you can pinpoint the shortfalls and point out specifically that we passed a law that, for example, set out once we have made a decision that we are setting up these community health promoters, for example, Mr. Speaker, it is defined and it is known. It's human resource. These are human beings. They are people with families. They have genuine expectations. They believe that they have a job. They are going around our villages treating. In fact, these community health promoters, Mr. Speaker, much as we do not remunerate them as well as we should, Mr. Speaker, I can give testimony that I know that those that I know in various villages in our communities, Mr. Speaker, do even more work than some of the medical professionals, Mr. Speaker, because they're visiting the 100 households that were allocated to them. Therefore, because it is already known what their salary is, it is already defined what the number of those CHPs are per county. Shouldn't it be rather obvious what their allocation is after factoring all the other additional costs that come with having them at their place of work, Mr. Speaker? And therefore, sometimes, and that is part of the lack of fluency in the drafting of some of these bills, Mr. Speaker, that I continue to point out and challenge staffers and members of parliament like you truly who serve in these committees, Mr. Speaker, not to make our work so difficult, because these are things that are already specified and they are known. Therefore, they shouldn't even form a basis for argument, because we know what the exact number of these people are, and we should be able to conclude on them. I like, for example, Mr. Speaker, that it has taken this committee, Mr. Speaker, just to point out and remind the whole country that when we made the decision in 2015 to build county headquarters for those 5 counties, I think Isiolo, Lamu, Nyandarua, and I don't know which 2 others, Mr. Speaker, we were very clear about how much we were going to give them, Mr. Speaker, and it was expected because at that particular time, there was a genuine understanding, a general understanding amongst all of us that served in Budget and Finance Committee at that time, Mr. Speaker, that because these counties did not have provincial or divisional or district headquarters at that particular time, we were going to give them a boost, but we were not going to turn the whole country to be sponsors for them, as such that if you are unable to conclude on building this project, like I've seen the case, I don't want to mention the specific county, Mr. Speaker, because as majority leader, people may interpret that I have something against a specific county, but that county is listed here. And I like that the committee has pointed out that that county has taken more than what is their projected share, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we cannot give them the 78 million shillings that is being projected. Let them find within their resources, Mr. Speaker, because the rest of the other 4 counties, I want to believe, Lamu, Isiolo, and the rest, have concluded with the allocation that we gave to them at that particular time, and we should avoid this temptation. It points out, Mr. Speaker, again, to even the drafters and the people that go into drafting some of this legislation, that perhaps either out of corruption, Mr. Speaker, or because of the fact that you come from a particular county, that you just want to obviously violate the law. If you read the report, Mr. Speaker, of the Budget and Finance Committee of 2015, I know it, Mr. Speaker, 2015-2016, I know what we appended and the allocation that was given to each county. If you have exhausted your quota, Mr. Speaker, that's it. There's no reason why we should be burdening the rest of the country to complete a headquarters for you, Mr. Speaker, more than 10 years down the line after the advent of devolution. And therefore, I agree with the proposal that this committee is making to deny that allocation to that particular county. These specific programs, and I wish Senator Moses Kajwang was here, but I know members of PAC are here, and Senator Osotsi, your member here, because your committee actually looks into this special allocation and funds. This so-called loan allocated project fund, donor funded projects, Mr. Speaker, in our counties. Danida, Floka, KAV, Ward for Agriculture, and they're increasing by the day, Mr. Speaker. If there is an avenue where public finances are being lost, Mr. Speaker, in our counties, it is these particular projects. And therefore, Senator Osotsi, if you and Senator Moses Kajwang do not lead us into establishing a mechanism through which we can ensure that citizens get value for money out of these loans, Mr. Speaker, then we need to disband those committees of yours. Because I do not know of a senator who cannot today go back to their county and point out under these funds of either FLOCA, the ones for Danida, the one for urban, for those that represent counties that have got urban settings for them, where this money is not wasted, where you find a kilometer of road is being built for more than 50 or 60 million shillings by a county government, Mr. Speaker. What nonsense is that, Mr. Speaker, that we are allowing as a county? Mr. Speaker, I really hope that by the time we get to the next session of the Senate, Senator Osotsi, Senator Moses Kajwang, your committees will actually lead us into ensuring that we have specific ways through which we ensure that these donor-funded projects in our county, citizens get value for money.
Senators, Senator Professor General, may the majority leader be heard in silence, please.
So, Mr. Speaker, it will be important, and I like what the Budget and Finance Committee is pointing us to us, like this latest project, the one for Kenya Agricultural Business Development Project, you know, the one for putting together, I don't know, community projects for young people in agriculture. These things have been there since I was a youth. Mr. Speaker, I don't think I'm a very good example, probably even since Senator Oburu was a young person, Mr. Speaker. These interventions in agriculture, Mr. Speaker, if they were achieving the desired result, Mr. Speaker, then we would say that carry on. But the problem is, us as a Senate, we are not involved in the design of this project. Yet, we are brought in as rubber stamps at the tail end of the program, where we are just supposed to append our signatures and say a program has been put together, therefore we can send funds to the counties. If you ask many of these senators that are here to give an account of their experience of these projects, the way they have been conceptualized and designed, Mr. Speaker, there will be more value for money in some of these grants, Mr. Speaker, despite the fact that they are specific to the projects that they are supposed to do, like these climate funds, Mr. Speaker. You find this is part of the money, if you don't know, like the FLOCA funds. It's part of the money that many of our governors continue to run projects similar to what used to be known in the national government as Kazi kwa Vijana, where they get their supporters and bloggers, you know, these people that they used to insult senators, so that they work with a slasher for 2-3 days and they disappear with 5 or 10,000 shillings per day, Mr. Speaker. Open, blatant corruption. Yet we account for these funds, colleague senators. It is time that we become also a bit more cautious in these so-called donor-funded projects. And you know, Mr. Speaker, they are very intelligent in how these projects, you know, those guys, the so-called treasury mandarins, are very intelligent. They know when they splash the catchphrases, World Bank, IMF-funded project, because of, I don't know, it's neocolonialism, Mr. Speaker, or whatever the issue is, we get easily excited and say, oh, if it is World Bank, perhaps this project have been properly thought about, let us just approve the funds. I want to believe, Mr. Speaker, that it is possible for the Senate of the Republic of Kenya to first put a stop to these so-called conditional and unconditional grants, Mr. Speaker, until such a time that we first see the feasibility report of these projects across our counties, Mr. Speaker, because, you know, these are monies that we'll eventually pay for. It is not free lunch. It is billions of shillings, Mr. Speaker, that eventually accumulate and stockpile as part of our national debt, Mr. Speaker. Yet, if you compare how that money is being used, Mr. Speaker, you know for a fact that many of them are just wasted, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, as a House, I want to, while I agree with the proposal to top up the funds, Senator Roba, there must be better accountability mechanisms of this project, up to and including, not just necessarily the amounts of money that are being dispersed, Senator Roba, but the conceptualization of the project itself. I know what is best for the people of Kericho. That's why they elected me to represent them here as a senator. And so on for all the rest of the senators that are here. I don't see how somebody can sit in Washington and design a project that we're just supposed to implement it as a turnkey project, Mr. Speaker, and expect that it will work miracles for my people. The Senate of the Republic of Kenya must have a better voice on these particular projects, Mr. Speaker, and including their conceptualization, what is the costing, Mr. Speaker, and how it gets. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, it's just a concern. Let me go to the specific clause. Part H, Mr. Speaker, of the report of their last recommendations, where the committee is proposing to us that we amend clause 5.6 to provide that all additional allocations to county governments under clause 5.1, 2, 3, and 4 shall be transferred to the respective CRF in accordance with the disbursement schedule approved pursuant to section 17 of the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 412A. What made me curious about this, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that I thought this is already provided for in law. But I have been in this house long enough, Mr. Speaker, to know that there is nothing that makes it sway into legislation out of idle venture. Are there perhaps specific counties, Mr. Speaker, where these funds or these additional allocations, Mr. Speaker, are being directed to without benefit to the rest of all the 47 county governments, Mr. Speaker, as such that Senator Roba and his team would wish that we provide this amendment to clause 5 and 6 and ensure that there is a direct transfer to the specific CRF of a particular county. I thought there is a general application, and maybe I should have asked the chairperson of this committee in private, but help me to wonder aloud with the rest of senators so that they appreciate. You know, Mr. Speaker, it would be important for senators to know that before the advent of this particular bill, one of the grave mistakes that used to happen, Mr. Speaker, is that when it was only Treasury on their own, making the decision of which counties to benefit from conditional grants, Mr. Speaker, it was specific counties that used to benefit from this particular project. And we felt that it was unfair to the rest of the devolution family because we believe in the principle of equity, that all 47 distinct county governments are equal before the law, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we moved the House, and the House agreed with us that let this House be the principal organ that does the distribution of resources. So that today, if we run a project in 5 counties, Mr. Speaker, we can justify to the rest of our colleagues that the other 42 have missed out, but somehow, some way, in the next financial year, you will be beneficiaries. That never used to be the case. And therefore, I get concerned, Mr. Speaker, when we have this amendment, and I hope Senator Roba can convince me before we take the vote on why it has to be specified that into the CRF accounts of the specific counties without listing which those particular counties are. Therefore, with those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support our committee and appreciate them for the very good work that they've done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, honorable senators, the youngest member of the House turns 81 today. That's none other than the Senator for Siaya, the Honorable Oburu Oginga. Happy birthday, Senator Oburu. Order, honorable senators. Thank you. Order, honorable senators, order. Order, honorable senators. Senator Oburu Odinga, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, Mr. Speaker, I thank you profusely for recognizing me as the youngest member of this House. Mr. Speaker, I have turned 81, and I still feel as if I'm 40, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I also want to take this opportunity to contribute to the report of our committee of the budget, chaired by our very competent leader from Mandera, Senator Roba. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very important bill. I think it is one of the cardinal functions of our Senate. Our Senate is there to protect the devolution. Mr. Speaker, I was a member of this parliament when there was no CDF. And at that time, it was only the local government fund. And then there was later on something called RDF, Rural Development Fund, which was a very small amount of money, Mr. Speaker, and mainly from donors. And we used to sit long hours as MPs in the DDCs trying to determine where that money would go. Mr. Speaker, when CDF came, we are the ones who brought CDF. Engineer Karwe brought the proposals and we all supported, and we created CDF. Mr. Speaker, it appears to me that the creation of CDF has made the MPs, our members of the National Assembly, to think that devolution does not matter. Whatever goes to the devolved units does not matter as long as they are getting access to that money. Mr. Speaker, they are getting access to that money illegally. So the courts have determined that CDF is illegal several times, Mr. Speaker. But always there is arm twisting. There is a way that the members of the National Assembly always find their ways to bring it back. However, cunningly they try to bring it back. Still, when it goes to court, courts declare it illegal. Mr. Speaker, there is also another thing. This rural roads fund, which also somehow, I don't know how the members of the National Assembly managed to twist it so that it becomes, it is under them. It is somehow under them. They are the ones who control the, that fund. So, Mr. Speaker, that is why I think, that is in my own thinking, I think that is why they forget when it comes now to the allocation to the counties, they recklessly reduce it as if they don't live in the counties. There is none of the members of the National Assembly who does not dwell in a particular county, and they know what the counties are supposed to do. We do the oversight apart from protection. But Mr. Speaker, while we do the oversight, we cannot say, oversight what is not there. We can only oversight monies which are there. So the first thing to do is to allocate money. Mr. Speaker, you remember when the Revenue Allocation Commission recommended that the counties should get 412 billion, and we approved that. Then when it went to the National Assembly, they reduced it to 498, and they were saying they have increased it, Mr. Speaker. They did not increase anything, because from 396 to 398, that 2 billion shillings increment, Mr. Speaker, covers only a little more or a little less than the inflation, which is more than 8-9%, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the deduction which are made as part of what they call austerity measures. These deductions, Mr. Speaker, are done arbitrarily without thinking of how they will affect the people at home. Mr. Speaker, when you think of these community health promoters, the community health promoters, originally they were not being paid anything. The counties, they were at the mercy of the governors. It was the governors giving them some little allowance if they will, but they perform the most important function at the grassroots, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these are the people who treat you before you go to any dispensary, if you have any disease at home. So these people have been working tirelessly with the communities at the grassroots without being remunerated at all, anything. They are not being paid even a token. Mr. Speaker, this is God sent, and the MPs should appreciate the work these people do. And for the first time, officially, there is an allocation for them in the budget to pay them. And the members of the National Assembly don't see such importance. When they want to reduce monies for austerity measures, they should know where to do it. Mainly, it should be in the national government budget, not in the county budgets, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this knife, I used to work in the treasury, Mr. Speaker, and we used to, to, to have a knife which was cutting allocations to ministries. But Mr. Speaker, there was a misunderstanding. There was a misunderstanding because ministries were just throwing figures, big figures outside the ceilings which they were given because they knew that the treasury was going to reduce them anyway. So they say, let us give a big figure so that they will, if they reduce it, it will come to what we want. But when it comes to us in treasury, if you do work within your ceilings, we give you everything that you want because it is within your ceilings. But if you inflate it, we don't know where to cut. So we just cut maybe some of the most essential ones you need. This is what the members of the National Assembly are doing. They are cutting the most essential. They are, they are attacking roads. They are attacking industrial parks. They are attacking health, the community health workers. Mr. Speaker, these are areas which should be no-go zone for the National Assembly when they come to reduction. These are areas which should be protected and they should not touch on this. Mr. Speaker, some of them don't understand what industrial parks mean. These industrial parks are going to create a revolution in terms of employment of the youth in the rural areas. And Mr. Speaker, when they are established there, it should be the duty of every leader to protect them and make sure that that money is ring-fenced and it is not touched in austerity measures when you come to reducing allocations, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to speak more because mine was only to support the recommendations of this committee, and I think they have done a good job, and we shall continue to support you if you work this. I used to be the chairman of Finance Committee before Budget Committee was created. We are the ones who created the Budget Committee, and I really appreciate the work being done by you, Honorable Roba, and your committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
I'm aware you've whispered it to me, so you need not take to the floor. Now, honorable senators, we had deferred two orders because we did not have the requisite delegations to go into division. Now we do. So allow me to rearrange today's order paper pursuant to Standing Order 45-2. We handle order number 9 and 10, and thereafter we come back to the debate on the additional revenue. It will take us less than 10 minutes. Clerk, proceed to call those to orders, please.
Order number 9, the Political Parties Amendment number 2 bill, Senate Bills number 26 of 2024, second reading division.
Sergeant at Arms, ring the division bell, please, for 5 minutes.
The quorum bell is currently on at the Senate this afternoon, following the directives by the Speaker of the Senate that the House votes on two crucial bills. The bills are the Political Parties Amendment Bill number 2, Senate Bills number 26 of the year 2024. This is a bill by the Senate lead of the majority party, and the Senate leader of the minority party. The other bill that the House is yet to vote on or is to the Election Offences Amendment Bill number 2 of the year 2024. This is Bill number 28 at the Senate, and this is the Election Offences Amendment Bill number 2 that the House is set to vote on this afternoon. The House had postponed the vote on these two bills owing to the fact that the number of senators was not enough to proceed into division this afternoon. But at this particular juncture, the House has the numbers to vote on these two bills. And that is why the Speaker has directed that the quorum bell is rung for 5 minutes ahead of that crucial vote. The Elections Amendment Bill of 2024 is an act of Parliament seeking, seeking to amend the Elections Act for the connected purposes. I look at this bill in regards to the matters elections. Is that the bill seeks to empower the Electoral Commission, pursuant to the provisions of Article 88, subsection 4H, to carry out evaluation of the electoral process within 1 year after the general election.
Now, honorable senators, we will start with order number 9. It has already been called out by the clerk, and therefore, order, honorable senators. I will proceed to put the question, which is that the Political Parties Amendment Bill, number 2 Senate Bills, number 26 of 2024, be now read a second time. Now we are going to vote electronically. So honorable senators, at this juncture, I will ask you to pull your cards out of the delegate unit. And Sergeant at Arms, kindly collect the unattended cards to forestall ghost voting. Honorable senators, you may now log back and proceed to vote. Honorable Kavindu, proceed to the dispatch and cast your vote. Senator Haji, proceed to the dispatch and cast your vote. Honorable Senators, the result of the division is as follows. Ayes at 31, nays at 0, abstention 0. So the ayes have it.
The Political Parties Amendment Number 2 Bill of 2024, a bill for an act of parliament to amend the Political Parties Act, Cap 7D, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, the Elections Offences Amendment Number 2 Bill, Senate Bills Number 28 of 2024, second reading division.
Honorable Senators, I'll proceed to put the question that the Elections Amendment Bill number 2, Senate Bills number 29 of 2024 be now read a second time. You may now proceed to vote. Senator Fernandi, move to the dispatch and get assisted, please. Senator Maruma, kindly wake up Senator Lominen and ask him to come to dispatch. That was a long prayer, Mr. Lominen. Oh. Now, honorable senators, the result of the division is as follows. Ayes at 33, nays 0, abstention 0. So the ayes have it.
The Election Offences Amendment Number 2 Bill 2024, a bill for an act of parliament to amend the Election Offences Act.
Sergeant at times, you may now open the door and withdraw the bar. Now, honorable senators, before we resume debate on order number 11, allow me to make the following communication. Now, honorable senators, at the sitting of the Senate held on Wednesday, the 9th of October 2024, Senator Fatuma Dulo brought it to the attention of this House that the governor of Isiolo, Honorable Abdi Ibrahim Hassan, had on several occasions failed to appear before various committees of the Senate in response to either an invitation to appear or summons. Indeed, the following instances serve as an illustration of the instances where the governor, without justifiable reason, has failed to appear. A, invitation by the County Public Accounts Committee, where the governor had been invited severally, but had declined to appear. Thus, summons dated the 12th of April 2024 were issued by the committee. B, invitation by the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare, where the governor had been invited severally, but has declined to appear. Thus, a summons was issued. C, invitation by the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget, where the governor had failed to respond to committee's requests for information, and thus summons dated the 31st of July 2024 were issued by the committee. The governor failed to appear in response to the summons, and the committee issued further summons dated the 30th of September 2024. D, invitation by the County Public Investments and Special Funds Committee, where the governor appeared and used demeaning language and insulted members of that particular committee. A, the governor failed to appear before the Standing Committee on Health pursuant to summons dated 21st of May 2024. The governor obtained conservatory orders prohibiting the Director of Public Prosecutions from implementing the resolution of the committee to have the governor prosecuted for breach of Section 27(1)A of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges. F, invitation by the Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration, where the governor has declined to appear before the committee. And finally, an invitation by the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations, where the governor did not appear. Now, honorable senators, it would be prudent to consider the issues raised by Senator Dulo in the context of the law and judicial pronouncements that govern the issuance of summons by Parliament or its committees. Article 125 of the Constitution provides as follows. Either House of Parliament and any of its committees has power to summon any person to appear before it for the purpose of giving evidence or providing information. For the purposes of Clause 1, a House of Parliament and any of its committees has the same powers as that of the High Court to do the following: to enforce the attendance of witnesses and examine them on oath, affirmation, or otherwise. B, to compel the production of documents, and C, to issue a commission or request to examine witnesses abroad. To give further effect to the powers under Article 125 of the Constitution, Section 18(1) of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act provides that Parliament or its committees may invite or summon any person to appear before it for the purpose of giving evidence or providing any information, paper, book, record, or document in the possession or under the control of that person. And in this respect, Parliament and its committees shall have the same powers as the High Court, as specified under Article 125 of the Constitution. Further, Section 19 of the Act provides as follows. Where a witness summoned does not appear or appears but fails to satisfy the relevant House of Parliament or committee, the relevant House or committee may impose upon the witness such fine not exceeding 500,000 shillings, having regard to the witness' condition in life and all the circumstances of the case. 2, a person may pay the fine under subsection 1 to the clerk of the relevant House. And 3, Parliament or its committee may order the arrest of a person who fails to honor a summons. Additionally, Section 27(1)A of the Act provides that a person commits an offense where the person, having been duly summoned in terms of Section 18, fails without sufficient cause to attend at the time and place specified in the summons, or remain in attendance until excused from further attendance by the person presiding at the inquiry. Now, under Section 27(2), a person who commits an offense under subsection 1 is liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 200,000 shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or both. Honorable Senators, the exercise of the powers under Article 125 of the Constitution by Parliament has been the subject of judicial consideration. For instance, in International Legal Consultants Group versus the Senate, 2014 EKLR, the court held inter alia, it is not in doubt that the Senate is conferred with the powers to summon any person to appear before it to give evidence or to provide information within its constitutional and statutory mandate. The powers to summon by the committees are equivalent to those of the High Court. In the same decision, the court found that the constitutional power to summon must be respected by all public officials at all times. The court further stated that summons should be a remedy of the last resort after attempts, consultation, or mediation have failed, and where it is clear that a county governor and all county officials have declined an invitation by the Senate or its committees to answer to matters oversight of county funds. Honorable Senators, from the foregoing, we may observe that Article 125 of the Constitution, as read together, with Section 18(1) of the Powers and Privileges Act, Parliament and its committees have the power to summon any person to appear before it for the purpose of giving evidence or any information. In this respect, Parliament has the same powers as the High Court to enforce the attendance of witnesses and examine them on oath, affirmation, or otherwise. Although the courts have held that the power to summon under Article 125 of the Constitution should not be exercised in an arbitrary or capricious manner and should be preceded by attempts at consultation and mediation, it is clear that the various committees of the Senate have made several attempts to invite the governor to appear before issuing the summons. In both instances, the governor has failed to appear in a clear disregard of the Senate's power under the Constitution. This conduct with the governor not only undermines the rule of law, but obstructs the Senate from discharging its role as the protector of counties under Article 96(1) of the Constitution and the primary organ of oversight on the use of public funds by county governments under Article 96(3) of the Constitution. This is not acceptable. It cannot be allowed to continue. Honorable Senators, in light of this, I therefore guide all committees which had issued summons to the governor of Isiolo to appear, and in which the governor failed to appear, to liaise with the Inspector of Police as a matter of urgency and require the Inspector General of Police to produce the governor before the respective committees at a determined date and time. This is not a favor. This is not a favor that the Senate or its committees are asking of the Inspector General of Police. The defiance displayed by the governor of Isiolo in respect to invitations and summons of the Senate cannot persist. The Inspector General of Police must, in exercise of his mandate pursuant to Article 245(2)(b) of the Constitution, extend the necessary support to the committees in order to secure the appearance of the governor. It is also expected that if recourse to the courts becomes necessary, such action will robustly be pursued in courts as well. It is also open to the Honorable Senator for Isiolo, and indeed any other senator, to use the legislative mechanisms available and outstanding orders, including a censure motion, to deal with the errant conduct of the governor of Isiolo. I thank you. Well, allow limited comments on this communication, starting with Senator Olekina.
Mr. Speaker, let me first of all acknowledge the good work that Senator Dulo has been doing for the people of Isiolo. Mr. Speaker, if it wasn't for her diligence in ensuring that those people get their services, those hospitals are open, which are now shut, that the people get services, we would not be discussing this matter. This is unprecedented, Mr. Speaker. This is the first time that your chair has actually almost censured a sitting governor. This House protects devolution. This House, the framers of the Constitution, gave it powers to be able to ensure accountability, a fiduciary responsibility on those who are given that responsibility by the citizens. Mr. Speaker, I sit in the Public Accounts Investment Committee, and it is quite sad because our job is very simple: to ensure that we take these governors to task and ensuring that they use the resources wisely. I've listened to your communication, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to vary your communication. It's well thought out, but I think we've got the powers in this House. Article 125, our Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, Section 19 and 18, gives us that power. We have penalized this, or we have fined this governor, I think twice now. That's $1 million shillings. We want to know whether that person, whether he has paid that to the clerk of the House. Mr. Speaker, we have a police station which is domiciled in the presence of Parliament. Why can't we authorize that? I know the law does not allow us to direct the Inspector General of Police, but I believe that the powers given to us by the Constitution, Article 125, where when we sit like a high court, we can be able to compel that witness to appear. Mr. Speaker, in the last parliament, we worked closely with the Ministry of Finance, and we were able to stop certain funds from going to a particular county. I think, Mr. Speaker, with your position and the powers given to this House, we can be able to take the same direction. I know, I think Article 255, or is it 225, lays out the procedure on which the Cabinet Secretary can stop funds. But this time around, we have got to think out of the box. We've got to be unorthodox in our thinking in order to be able to defend devolution. We have to find a way to stop those funds, and whoever is protecting this individual, because he boasts around and he says the way is untouchable, must also take judicial notice that in this country, in this Senate, we will demand accountability. The only way, Mr. Speaker, that we can be able to ensure the people of Isiolo gets their services is if we all suspend any other discussion today, any other business, and we deal with this matter. We can censure that governor, even if he's not sitting here. Mr. Speaker, we talk about separation of powers between the three arms of government. I believe, with the spirit of cooperation, that we can be able to engage these other two arms of government, the executive and the judiciary, to be able to come up with a methodology in which we can be able to demand that this individual is brought to this House, this individual is penalized, and the people of Isiolo can be able to get their services. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I was watching a video of a young lady in Isiolo who was taken to the hospital. She was in ICU for 25 days. And she had to be told, go home, because the hospital is closed. Seriously? We can sit here as senators and allow devolution to die? Allow people to be able to thumb chest and say that they are untouchable? I think it's about time that we remind these governors that power is transient. Today you are so powerful, tomorrow you are nothing. You know, literally nothing. Mr. Speaker, to use a Swahili word, hii ni dhuluma. You know, this guy is really, I don't even know what to say. You know, he's so drunk with power, he's humiliating his citizens. He was not elected to be able to go there and make people suffer. We must remind these people that power is transient. And this Senate is powerful. We've been reminded so many days that we're powerful. We're going to be sitting here tomorrow discussing the issue of impeachment of a deputy president. And you still say that we don't have power? Mr. Speaker, let us use this police station, which is domiciled in parliament. We should not just see police here sitting, you know, trying to protect parliament. The only way you can be able to protect devolution is by making sure that you call these people to account. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to request the Inspector General of Police, who I believe is a fine gentleman, who I believe is someone who is committed to ensure that there is discipline in this country, to expeditiously, you know, go and make sure that that governor is taken to jail. Because you cannot violate Section 19 of the Public or the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. You cannot violate summons from this Senate and you continue there. And yet this is the same Senate which is fighting for you to get money. Seriously. That is completely ludicrous. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that everyone here today, let us not talk about anything else. Let us censure this person and make sure that we use all the powers that we have to make sure that the people of Isiolo get what is rightfully theirs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wamatenga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also like to support the motion and the communication you've just made. Mr. Speaker, sir, Indeed, a very sad affair that we are chosen and elected by electorate.
What is so disorderly about Senator Matinga majority?
Apologies to Senator Matinga, Mr. Speaker, but I just wanted to request if you could guide, given that this is a matter that I know many senators will want to speak to, if we could provide guidance on time so that we get as many of our colleagues a chance to speak to it.
Okay, honorable senators, we need not to go on a vote on this. We can agree on a consensus. 3 minutes. 3 minutes? 3 minutes it is. Senator Matinga, your time starts running from now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity. Indeed, when we campaign in this country, we promise all kinds of good things to our electorate. It is very unfortunate that some of us get in the office and they forget the very same things that we promised. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've heard from my neighbor here, the senator from Marsabit, his frustration with the governor for Isiolo. He has issued many invitations, but he has ordered none of them. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are elected as leaders to sit down and listen together. At times, the issues that we invite governors and other officials to appear before our committees are not intended to serve our own interest, but the interest of the community and the society of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is indeed quite important that when we are addressing such issues, we put mechanism in place to ensure that such persons who do not honor the invitations of committees, who even do not honor the summons, and that has happened quite a number of times, Mr. Speaker, and some of them are known to be quite extreme because they perceive themselves to be demigods. It is imperative that this House acts and behaves as in such a way to show such leaders that they are not demigods. Mr. Speaker, sir, the minute that we realize we've been elected to serve Kenyans, that is the time that we'll embrace servant leadership. It is quite unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that a governor who's been elected by the electorate of Isiolo and who had promised to deliver cannot even honor sit down with the senator. And this, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the only way to ensure that we deliver a service to our people through collaborative, participatory approach that requires the leaders to sit down together, reason together, and come up with an amicable working solution that addresses the issue of our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a House, we can only be able to execute our mandate of oversight if we put instruments in place that will ensure that we do not remain toothless. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is quite unfortunate and very, very sad that in the 21st century, somebody who platformed on the premise that he's going to deliver services cannot appear before this House, not that he's being asked personal questions, but questions that have to do with the way he's pushing the issues of Isiolo, governance issue, accountability and transparency. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the high time that we show the world and the whole country that we as senators of this country, we mean business and we want to ensure that services are delivered to them. And the only way to do that, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to bite and bite very hard. Mr. Speaker, sir, we didn't say that we can tell or request the IG to bring such a person and any other person before the committee. We must do it, Mr. Speaker, because if we fail to do that, Mr. Speaker, the role of this House that has been given to us by the Constitution of Kenya will remain unexecuted because we have arrogant people.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate sitting here and listening to the level of impunity by a governor who has refused to attend several committee invitations. Mr. Speaker, this particular governor appeared before my committee, and the kind of conduct he exhibited when he appeared before my committee, it was the most unbecoming conduct from a governor. He almost exchanged with some of the members who are asking valid questions on matters to do with governance in Isiolo County. Mr. Speaker, you remember that in this House I sponsored a bill, an amendment to the Powers and Privileges Act, where I said that we need to enhance the fine from 500,000 to 2 million shillings, and also put in provisions on how the arrest can be executed. That bill was passed by this House, and that bill is lying in the National Assembly. Maybe at this point, we would wish the National Assembly to speed up the passage of that bill so that we can deal with matters like this of Isiolo. Mr. Speaker, I think some governors take it like a crime if we invite them to appear before Senate. They think that we are punishing them. Mr. Speaker, we are simply doing our oversight role as per Article 96 of the Constitution. So I want to thank those governors who have honored our invitation in our various committees and appeared and answered questions affecting their counties. But there are others who, when invited, Mr. Speaker, they try and use all manner of excuses not to appear. That is against devolution, which this House under Article 96 exists to protect. I think, as Senator Dama said, I think it's a high time we have a censure motion on some of these governors. It should go beyond your communication, Mr. Speaker, so that we have a censure motion to discuss the conduct of these governors and any other governor who will run away from a summon. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, we summoned the former governor of Kitui, Honorable Charity Ngilu, over the matter of Kikotek, where millions of money was embezzled, Mr. Speaker. And the governor did not even respond to our request.
The Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I will not finish the 3 minutes. There's just one thing I want to say. Your communication is very well reasoned. The only thing I expect, Mr. Speaker, and that your ruling fell short of, and I want to believe it is out of the abundance of caution, not to be taken to be usurping the powers that belong to the chairpersons of our committee, is that you should actually have ordered the Inspector General of Police to search and produce the governor, wherever he is, if he's in Isiolo, Dubai, whichever part of the world he's in, Mr. Speaker, until he's produced here before the Senate. But given that this is a matter that is presently before various committees, then I agree with your wisdom, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I expect that at the next sitting of any of these committees that the governor has defied, the chairperson alongside the members will draft the summons and ask the Inspector General of Police to produce that that governor and ensure that he is in safe custody until the next sitting of that particular committee. We have a very good police station here at Parliament, Mr. Speaker. It is for dealing with errant members of society, which include even governors who fail to honor summons, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to see a 4-1, Mr. Speaker, that Senate Committee of XYZ orders the Inspector General of Police to arrest, detain, and produce before the next sitting of the Committee of XYZ Governor Guyo for failure to honor summons before until he learns to respect Parliament. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to associate myself with the comments by the majority leader, but with some amendment. The Speaker, a lot will be said by senators here. But you see, the Speaker, what this governor has done is that he has disobeyed invitations and summons by various committees, requiring that each committee then contacts the Inspector General of Police to produce the governor before them. The Speaker, that may be a bit of a tall order. My thing is, the Speaker, would be, if it were possible, there are two options. One, either a motion is brought before this House, so the House passes a resolution requiring the Inspector General of Police to arrest and produce the governor, or alternatively, Mr. Speaker, the chairman of the liaison committee where all the chairmen of committees sit, takes up the matter with the Inspector General of Police to require on behalf of the Senate, the Speaker. Because what is happening, the Speaker? What is happening is that the governor of Isiolo has shown contempt of the first degree, not against the committees, but against the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Secondly, as you have heard from Senator Otsosi, you know, once that example is set, then it becomes very popular with other governors. And at the end of the day, what will happen is that then governors will be asked to appear before Senate. They will decide whether to come or not to come. Mr. Speaker, let this Senate, in this case, ensure that the governor of Isiolo is physically arrested and locked up in the cells in the Senate police station and produced before a plenary sitting of the Senate, the Speaker, so that he may serve as an example to other governors who are also wayward, who have no respect, who don't honor summons and invitations by committees of the Senate. Mr. Speaker, Article 125 of the Constitution is very clear, 125 2A, that a House of Parliament or any of its committees can enforce the
Senator Mgatana.
Mr. Speaker, actually, my note was on Order 11, so I will pass.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do appreciate and congratulate you for that communication. And my contribution is just in two parts, Mr. Speaker, to request governors to remember or to realize that devolution did not just happen in this country. Men and women of this republic made sacrifices, people lost their limbs, people lost their properties, people lost their lives. My second comment, Mr. Speaker, is, well, as I agree with you on the how, but I just wanted to draw your attention, Mr. Speaker, to the Constitution of Kenya, Article 245, which established the National Police Service, Mr. Speaker. And in this article, there is Part 4, which, Mr. Speaker, says that the Cabinet Secretary responsible for police services may lawfully give a direction to the Inspector General with respect to any matter of policy for the national state, but no person may give direction to the Inspector General in respect of investigation, and enforcement matters, Mr. Speaker. I was thinking maybe we should have taken the right route, namely ask the Cabinet Secretary to do what the Constitution gives them in the section that I've read. Failing which, Mr. Speaker, we shall have contravened subsection 4, which does not allow any other person other than the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I support your communication.
Honorable Boni, read the powers of the High Court. Those are the powers that are in your hands. Senator Fokelefe.
Asante mstahiki Spika. Mstahiki Spika, kitu cha kwanza nataka kumsifu dada yetu Fatma Dulo, seneta wa Isiolo, kwa kuleta malalamishi kama haya mbele ya bunge la Senate. Bwana Spika, ni jambo la kusikitisha sana kuona gavana ambaye ameitwa katika bunge la Senate aje, ama gavana ambaye ameitwa na kamati ya Senate aje, ajitokeze na akose kufika. Bwana Spika, ni jambo pia vile vile la kusikitisha kwamba yeye kama kiongozi wa gatuzi la Isiolo ni lazima azingatie sheria na ajue kwamba bunge la Senate ndio linalomshughulikia na kumtafutia pesa ili aweze kutumia kufanya maendeleo ndani ya Isiolo. Bwana Spika, kitu kingine ni kwamba ule uamuzi ambao umechukuliwa hivi sasa, Bwana Spika, katika ulivyochukua huo uamuzi wa kwamba yeye aweze kuitwa tena mbele ya kamati na kupitia kwa mkuu wa polisi, hilo ni jambo zuri, kwa sababu kuanzia hivi sasa kutakuwa na heshima itakayopeanwa na kwa watu wa kwa maseneta wetu na kuheshimu bunge la Senate, ya kwamba usipokwenda tunaweza kutumia nguvu zetu hapa ndani ya bunge la Senate na tukamwambia mkuu wa polisi uweze kukamatwa na uletwe mbele ya Senate ama kamati ya Senate ili uweze kujibu yale maswali, na tutafanya hivyo tukitumia njia hiyo, na ni kwamba itakuvunjia heshima wewe kama gavana, manake ukija ukishikwa utatiwa ndani korokoroni, alafu siku ya pili ama baada hiyo weekend ikimalizika utapelekwa katika kamati ya Senate ili uweze kujibu ni kwa nini hawezi kuja. Na hili hatutaki uhusiano kama huo uweze kujitokeza wakati ambapo inatakana serikali ya ugatuzi. Hivi sasa tunawapigania pesa wapate, na hatutaki zipunguzwe, na wao wanafanya tabia kama hizo, na sisi tunaona hiyo si jambo zuri. La mwisho, Bwana Spika, mimi nasema Gavana Guyo aelewe ya kwamba mmoja wapo katika serikali ya ugatuzi ni Isiolo, na Isiolo si kipochi chake, wala pia vile vile Isiolo si nyumba yake. Aelewe kwamba Isiolo ni gatuzi la watu wa Isiolo, na akiitwa na Isiolo ama akiitwa na kamati ya Senate aweze kujua ya kwamba ni lazima aje afike. Asipofanya hivyo hatua itachukuliwa. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable Senators, we seem to have a problem with our system. If there are any other senators wishing to contribute to the motion, to the allegations, yes. Very well. By show of hand, we'll start with Commissioner.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza kabisa nataka kumshukuru seneta wa kutoka Isiolo, Seneta Fatuma Duro, kwa swali ambalo aliuliza ndiposa tuweze kupata mwelekeo, na tayari Bwana Spika tumepata mwelekeo, na nataka kumshukuru seneta kwa sababu yeye amekuwa mzoefu na amekuwa kwa muda mrefu katika seneti hii, na maswali ambayo ameuliza Bwana Spika ni swali nzuri kabisa, kwa sababu Gavana Guyo, kile ambacho amehitajika ni yeye kuja hapa katika seneti hii ama kamati ya seneti hii kujibu maswali Bwana Spika. Si maswali ya seneta, ni maswali ambayo watu wa Isiolo wangetaka huduma Bwana Spika, na hiyo ndio maswali ambayo yanaulizwa. Bwana Spika, imenivunja moyo sana kusikia kwamba gavana anakuja katika kamati na hakuna jambo anafanya ila kuleta madharau katika kamati Bwana Spika. Nimemsikiza seneta wa Vihiga, Seneta Ostosi, ambaye ni mwenyekiti wa kamati, akisema ya kwamba yule gavana hata baada ya kufika katika ile kamati ni kuonyesha dharau Bwana Spika, ni kama hawafai. Ilhali maseneta hata siku ya leo Bwana Spika tumekuwa tukisema ya kwamba pesa ambazo zinakwenda katika kaunti zetu ni mpaka ziongezeke Bwana Spika. Nilimsikiza Seneta Dulo akiuliza inawezekanaje sisi tunapigania pesa ziende katika gatuzi ya Isiolo, lakini gavana mwenyewe hawezi kuja kujibu maswali Bwana Spika. Nataka kusema ya kwamba uamuzi ambao umetolewa na Spika siku ya leo na kubaliana nao 100% Bwana Spika, na umetoa mwongozo ndio hata magavana wengine ambao wako na zile nia ama zile tabia Bwana Spika waweze kupata funzo Bwana Spika. Na Bwana Spika, sisi vile tunavyofanya katika seneti hii ni kuwakilisha wananchi wa Kenya Bwana Spika, katika gatuzi ambazo tumechaguliwa. Bwana Spika, sioni jambo lolote ya kwamba gavana anaogopa kuja kujibu maswali, kwa sababu maswali ambayo anaulizwa ni maswali kuhusu utendaji kazi wake katika kaunti yake Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, asipokuja inaonekana ni madharau, na nataka kukubaliana na Spika vile alivyosema, atafutwe mahali alipo Bwana Spika, na wakati wote kamati itakapokuwa ikiketi Bwana Spika, aweze kutolewa Bwana Spika, kwa sababu faini hizi Bwana Spika ambazo amekuwa akitozwa kwake anaona ni mzaha Bwana Spika, kwa sababu atatoa zile pesa katika akaunti za gatuzi zetu na aweze kulipa Bwana Spika. Anatoa mkono huu na kuweka katika mkono huu Bwana Spika. Nataka kukubaliana na nataka kumpongeza tena Seneta Dulo kwa kazi nzuri ambayo amefanya na ametutolea mwongozo. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, nasema asante.
Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate you for that communication that you have made, and also congratulate Senator Dulo for escalating this matter to the plenary. As a chair of a committee, I have been seized of this matter, and Mr. Speaker, I am one of those chairs or the leaders of those committees that have gone to Isiolo County to carry out our constitutional mandate. Mr. Speaker, when the Public Accounts Committee landed in Isiolo, we were scheduled to have our meetings at the Isiolo County Assembly. The Speaker of Isiolo County Assembly and the entire membership of the Assembly disappeared, including the clerk. We were only left with the Sergeant at Arms. The Governor, whom we had given notice that the Senate would be coming to Isiolo, was a no-show. Mr. Speaker, even the projects that the committee had come to inspect as part of its constitutional mandate, we could not get access to the projects. Mr. Speaker, one of the projects was a market and a county headquarter. The project manager is a Ministry of Public Works. Even the project manager could not get access to those facilities. Mr. Speaker, it must go on record that when we do what we do in committees, it is not vendetta and it is not pursuit for personal glory or any personal gratification. We are doing it because the Constitution requires us to oversight public resources that have been assigned to county governments. I want to say, having visited Isiolo, that the people of Isiolo deserve proper medical services just like the people of Homa Bay. The people of Isiolo deserve representation at the county assembly just like the people of Kiambu or Moranga or any other county. Mr. Speaker, it is obvious that those things are not happening. But we cannot be a house that laments. Mr. Speaker, I perhaps do not agree that this house should be considering a censure motion against a governor because we have the power to impeach a governor. And so we cannot initiate the process that will lead to that impeachment. But what our clerks must do for posterity is to advise senators on the concept of contempt of parliament. Mr. Speaker, the directions that parliament gives in the event of contempt are still subject to judicial review. And yet contempt of court is not subject to any other review. Contempt of the executive is met with dire consequences. We have put ourselves in a position of weakness, Mr. Speaker, by subjecting issues of contempt of parliament to review of other bodies of judicial review. Mr. Speaker, in other jurisdictions, subpoenas are issued and the Inspector General or the head of the police has a responsibility to execute them. Let us not lament. The Inspector General of Police was vetted by this House.
Order, senators. Senators, order. Let's listen to Senator Kajwang. 1 minute to conclude, Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, the Inspector General of Police was vetted by this House. And someone who's an appointee of the Senate cannot then have the guts to defy legitimate instructions and directions of the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, Senator for Kakamega, Senator Khalwale, has gone down in history as having led a march to the office of the Inspector General of Police. We should never appear helpless. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to encourage the citizens of Isiolo to go to the County Governments Act and push for a motion for suspension of that county government because the activities of the governor and the ruling class in Isiolo are contrary to the common good of the people of Isiolo. However, Mr. Speaker, this conversation should not be localized to one governor or to one county. This is a problem that we are seeing across several other counties in the 47 county governments. And we need a solution. We need to strengthen the consequences for contempt of parliament without subjecting them to judicial review. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ali Roba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I stand here as a governor who has served 10 years and who has appeared before various committees, including that of Senator Kajwang, severally. One thing, as a governor from my region of Northern Kenya, it's a bit embarrassing when you're invited by various committees and consistently you fail to appear, including the committee I chair. The role of oversight committees of Senate is to vindicate you from wrongdoing if you're able to appear and explain, the state of expenditure or issues of concern that has been shared. My worry is, what would the governor tell the people of Isiolo County as the reason for failing to appear before various committees of the Senate? And what is it that the governor is hiding so much such that the governor cannot appear before oversight committees of parliament? And what is very unique with this one governor of Isiolo County, Governor Guyo, so that all the other governors having their second term, the first term, are appearing before various committees. However, Governor Guyo finds it impossible to appear before various committees of the Senate. It should be a question that the public of Isiolo needs to ask themselves. What is our governor hiding? Why is it that our governor can't appear as other governors are appearing before oversight committees of the Senate? Because the opportunity to be able to appear and explain issues of concern that has been raised on behalf of the public of Isiolo is an opportunity that any leader, with sound mind at this level of a governor should be able to take that opportunity to freely come without being persuaded to come, unless there is something very serious that he's hiding, or he can't appear because he's ill prepared to be able to appear. Because now, as you're leading a county and consistently you're being discussed for failing to appear before various committees of the Senate, and that puts you in a very embarrassing situation. I think the direction that the speaker has given is a sound direction, and all of us need to take advantage of that to be able to make sure that this is enforced on behalf of the people of Isiolo County. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know why the senator of Senator Chimera is very excited today. Senator from Kwale. But that's fine. I think that he must be very excited because I think that the governor for Isiolo has frustrated the House for so many years, Mr. Speaker. And I have witnessed, Mr. Speaker, from my own committee, CPIC, when the governor, first of all, was very reluctant to appear in the committee. But when he eventually appeared, he appeared as if the work that we were doing in that committee were not important, to the extent that it became a very bad exchange, Mr. Speaker. But that said, Mr. Speaker, whenever we invite, because we start with the invitation to governors to come and appear before the committees of the House, Mr. Speaker, and even if you further this by a sermon, Mr. Speaker, most of the time, these invitations are about audit queries. And audit queries, Mr. Speaker, if you look at all the audit queries that we have had, Mr. Speaker, they are there to protect the people of our respective counties from any exploitation of Article 43, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if a governor doesn't show up and disrespect committees of the House, Mr. Speaker, I think that this is the best definition of a crime. And what I was expecting, Mr. Speaker, is perhaps a guidance to the committees of the respective, the chairs of the respective committees, that they recommend prosecution of such a governor. Because I don't think that having Inspector General of Police bring a governor who is rogue, who is exploiting his people, who is not performing for his people, who is actually wasting the resources of his people, and you want someone to appear before us, and it doesn't show up, just mayor bringing before us doesn't help the people to get their services. Let the chairpersons of these respective committees recommend prosecutions, and let those recommendations come in form of a report to this House. Let us ratify those reports through the process of debate and consideration in this House, and let us forward the recommendations to DPP and recommend a prosecution. And I hope that Governor of Isiolo will be the first one to face the wrath of a House of Parliament that protects the people against such exploitation. So, Mr. Speaker, let recommend prosecution of this governor. I think
Senator Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me first to raise a point of concern, Mr. Speaker, on our systems, Mr. Speaker. We really need to figure out how to deal with this issue of our systems, because we are facing a very important issue tomorrow. And if it happens that every time we are queuing to speak and suddenly the system drops, and then we are subjected to, either not offer our views, Mr. Speaker, we will not be doing justice to the people that we present, Mr. Speaker. So I don't know what plans the Secretariat, the Clerk's office, the people in charge have for tomorrow, but it can definitely not be that when we are ready to speak, the systems drop. It looks a little bit awkward, Mr. Speaker. On the issue of the governor of Isiolo, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that as a member of the Labor Committee, we actually had summoned the governor because he has allegedly employed over 45 advisors, Mr. Speaker, contrary to what is allowed in law. And you can see the level of impunity. If it is true that indeed he has employed over 45 advisors and he has refused to submit himself before the Labor Committee, Mr. Speaker, we are 100% sure that there's a lot of other monkey business going on in Isiolo, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, when we were issuing the summons of arrest from the Labor Committee, it was in the interest of the people of Isiolo, because if we as a Senate committee cannot trace where the governor is, for sure the people of Isiolo have no clue where their governor is, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I think it is imperative that even in future, if we amend the powers and privilege, if we amend the standing orders, that it should be imperative that at the points that the first committee has issued the arrest, a letter from the Speaker's office should just initiate that the culprit be arrested on the spot, Mr. Speaker. So we are looking forward to some action so that we can be able to account for the people of Isiolo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator James Morango.
Finally. Asante sana Mstahiki Spika kwa kunipa nafasi. Kitu ya kwanza ningetaka kusema kwamba ni jambo la aibu, kwa sababu aliye gavana wa Isiolo Abdi huyo alikuwa mwakilishi wangu wa Matopeni. Ile wakati pia nilikuwa Matopeni ward. Wakati pia mimi nilikuwa wakilishi wangu wa Kerugoya, akawa kiongozi wa wengi na mimi pia nilikuwa kiongozi wa wengi, nikakuja Senate na akawa gavana wa Isiolo. Na kwa sababu tunaamini kwamba ukipitia kutoka wewe ni mwakilishi wandi na umefika mahali ulipo, pia unakuwa umesoma mambo mengi. Na ni vibaya na aibu kuonekana kwamba sasa wale wanaofika kuwa mangavana kupitia mawakilishi wandi ni kama watu ambao pia wanaanza kuvunja sheria. Hiyo ni kutuharibia hata sisi, Mstahiki Spika. La pili niseme kwamba seneti tio tingatinga ambayo inatumika kutengeneza barabara mahali kuna mawe na miti, ikimaliza inawekwa kando isiharibu barabara. Tunapokuja huku kupitisha fedha ambazo mangavana wanatumia, lazima kwamba wajue ya kwamba lazima tutafuatilia kuona zile fedha zinafanya kazi. Na kwa hivyo gavana anapoarifiwa kwamba anafaa kufika katika kikao kwa kamati ya seneti, anafaa kwa mapema afike, akuja jieleze. Hii sasa inaonekana ni kinaya na pia ni kukosea Senate heshima, kwa sababu siku zote hizo wameitwa wamekataa kukuja. Mstahiki Spika, niliangalia wakati kulikuwa na kikao ya Spika ambapo gavana huyo alimtusi seneta wa Narok katika kikao. Na niseme kwamba hiyo si mzaa, sio kitu ya kufurahia. Ni kitu ambayo pia inaonyesha kwamba watu wa Isiolo kama sisi hatuwezi kuwatetea watatetewa na nani kwa gavana ambaye ni mkakamavu na amekosa heshima kiwango ya kwamba anaweza kuja kutusi seneta katika kamati. Kwa hivyo mstahiki Spika, ningesema ya kwamba achukuliwe hatua ambazo zinafaa kuchukuliwa, aletwe katika kamati zile zote, na ikiwezekana akuje awekwe ndani. Akija kwa kamati anarudishwa ndani, anatolewa kamati hiyo ingine mpaka amalize vikao vyote akiwa bado ako ndani, kwa sababu akiachiliwa hatujui kwamba atakuja tena ama atatoroka. Asante sana mstahiki Spika.
Alexander Mundingi.
Asante Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono vile maseneta wa kaunti 47 wanaongea kwa sababu mimi nilikuwa mmoja komiti wa REPA. Tumekuwa na kikao mara moja, ya pili, ya tatu, na pia seneta wa Isiolo Mheshimiwa Nduro amekuwa akihudhuria hiyo kikao, na imekuwa na shinda nyingi sana kwa sababu tumekuwa tukimhitaji akuja anjibu majibu vile ameajiri kazi watu wafanyikazi na vile analipa watu, na amekuwa akuji na nakumbuka wiki jana tulisema aweze kutolewa summon na pia aweze kuangaliwa vile atalipa shilingi 1500. Kwa hivyo naunga mkono governor aweze kutafutwa na mkuu wa polisi aweze kuletwe, na kama ni rais wa Kenya kwa mwaka mmoja huwa anakuja anaongea katika Senate pamoja na Parliament, na pia kama kwa hii kikao ya Senate Bwana Spika, kila wakati wote siku ya Jumatano kama cabinet secretary huwa anakuja, na katika governor wote wanakuja Bwana Spika, na governor wa Isiolo hawezi kuheshimu mambo ya Senate. Ningeomba mambo yote machairman wote wa kamati wakae pamoja na kila kamati iweze kutoa mashtaka yake na iandikwe pamoja, na wakati huyo governor ataweza kushukuriwa aweze kuletwa hapa katika kikao ya Senate, akuje akalishwe chini na maseneta 67. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono huyo governor aweze kushukuriwa hatua, kwa sababu najua si tumekuwa hapa kila mara tukiongea mambo ya ukatuzi, tukiongea mambo ya wizara 10, mambo ya hela ya hospitali, mambo ya hela ya wafanyikazi, mambo ya hela hata ya parapara na kila kitu yote, na kama kila wakati wote juu ya tunatetea ukatuzi Bwana Spika, na ule governor ndiye anafaa ajibu maswali ni kama audit na akuji, tunasunika sana. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono huyo governor aweze kuletwa hapa kwa maseneta wote tuweze kuona vile atachukua hatua. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, naunga mkono nikiwa senator wa Embu County. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Chimera.
Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa fursa hii. Bwana Spika, ni kupongeze sana kwa ujumbe huu ambao ni muhimu sana katika uendeshaji wa shughuli za bunge la seneti hili. Bwana Spika, kwa kweli gavana huyu kutoka Isiolo amekuwa donda sugu lisilopona. Bwana Spika, nafikiri mimi mwenyewe ni mwanakamati wa kamati ile ya masuala ya usawa, na bunge hili katika mswada wao wa hali halisi ya taifa baada ya yale maandamano ya vijana wa Gen Z, tuliweza kupewa fursa na nguvu na bunge hili kuweza kuwaita magavana wote ndani ya nchi hii ili kutathmini ni hali gani ama ni jinsi gani wamefanya kuhakikisha kwamba vijana katika nchi hii wanapata nafasi za kazi, wanapata nafasi za ajira, nafasi za biashara katika kaunti zetu. Lakini la kusikitisha ni kwamba gavana huyu wa Isiolo, Mheshimiwa Guyo, nafikiri amekataa katakata kufika katika kamati ile, na ninavyosikia kwamba pia amekataa kuja katika kamati zingine katika bunge letu hili. Ni jambo la kusikitisha Bwana Spika, na niseme kwamba sisi kama seneta tunapaswa kupeana ilani kali sana kwa magavana kama hawa na wale wengine ambao pia wanapania kutoheshimu amri ya seneti. Jumba hili la seneti kwa mara ya kwanza sasa nafikiri jumba ambalo limepata hadhi yake, lina sifa yake kedekede, na vile vile pia linafuata sheria kuhakikisha kwamba ugatuzi kweli umeonyeshwa katika kaunti zetu kule mashinani. Mimi naomba tu kwa wale magavana ambao wanataka kuenda njia hii ya gavana wa Isiolo, tunawapa ilani ya kwamba sisi kama maseneta, ikiwemo mimi seneta kutoka kaunti ile yangu ya Kwale, hatutalala katika kazi yetu, hatutazembea. Tutahakikisha kwamba wewe kama gavana ambaye unapata fedha ya serikali ya umma kumfanyia mwananchi kazi, utaweza kuwajibika, na ni lazima ufike katika kamati zetu za seneti ili uweze kujieleza, na si kwamba tunakushutumu. Sielewi kwa nini gavana huyu, bwana spika, anaogopa kuja katika bunge letu hili. Nini anaficha ambayo anaona kwamba hawezi kuja kutujielezea, bwana spika? Mimi naomba hatua kali chukuliwe, kando na yale uliyasema katika ujumbe wako, bwana spika. Gavana aweze kukamatwa ikiwezekana hata leo, ili aweze kupewa fursa ya kuja katika bunge hili na ajieleze na tuone ni nini anachokificha katika kaunti yake ile ya Isiolo. Asante sana bwana spika.
Senator Mofaya.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to support this motion by Senator Ovisiolo. Honorable Speaker, I've been around for the last close to 2 years now. I serve in various committees, including being the chair of delegated registration in the Senate. Honorable Chair, I have observed with a lot of dismay that there is purported emergent overrated rivalry between governors and senators for no apparent reason. No, Honorable Speaker, oversight is a constitutional obligation. Senator Duro is not pursuing her own interest for that matter. She is doing what is exactly enshrined in the Constitution. So the governor of Isiolo is not, the rivalry is not between the governor and the senator. The rivalry is between what the Constitution really dictates. That the governor has to obey the summons, the invitation from various committees. And you know, Honorable Speaker, I have observed that quite a number of people who have served as members of parliament, who have served as members of the Senate, who have served as the members of the county assembly, are very defiant and raw when it comes to appearing before Senate committee. I don't know for what reasons. So, Honorable Speaker, I think it's important for us as a house to make some very serious regulations to that matter, because I think if we don't tame these governors, and I know it is very sad, Honorable Speaker, even some of us who are making a lot of lamentation in this house, today, tomorrow, if you become a governor, I will be surprised to see that quite a number of us who might be governors tomorrow might be following the same path. So that's when you're invited in these committees, you just defy, because you know so and so who has been your colleague maybe in the previous regime is the chairman of that committee. So, Honorable Speaker, let's not run away from making sure these things are individual. It's about the Constitution. So the governor for Isiolo must be compelled to make sure that he appears in every committee in this house. He must be compelled. We have a committee called National Cohesion Integration Commission, which is run by Senator for Marsabit, Honorable Chute. I remember we have filed several invitations for Governor for Isiolo, which has not been observed. He identified all those invitations. So, Honorable Speaker, I think it's important we make sure that we stamp our authority over these invitations and make sure that we don't dilute the essence and the very best interest of the devolution for the interest of our people in our relevant counties. I support Honorable Speaker.
Senator Tabitha Mutinda.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. And let me start by really appreciating Senator for Isiolo, Senator Dulo, for bringing this motion before this House. It's very important. And Mr. Speaker, when I look at the committee that I sit and I serve as the Vice Chair of Finance, we've dealt with the issue of the pending bills for Isiolo, in the sense that when the Senator for Isiolo asked the committee the issue of pending bills for her county, the committee through the Secretariat did the needful and wrote to the county of Isiolo. Mr. Speaker, that has been over 1 year, and up to date, Mr. Speaker, the county of Isiolo has never responded on this. As a committee of finance, we summoned the governor, and he gave an excuse indicating that he was hosting a function for Isiolo, a function combined with Marsabit County, among other counties, and that was so much of a priority, unlike appearing to the committee. As we speak, the Finance Committee has summoned the same governor. He's supposed to appear next week the 22nd of this month on the same response, and we await. Chances are he might not appear, and it is good we are having this discussion because we have other many matters we want to prosecute. The committee that I also sit in CPIC, it's true, there was an exchange between the same governor and Senator Ledama, something that, as a committee, of course, was a big disappointment. And after that exchange, Mr. Speaker, the same governor's team, I presume, went ahead to put some of the members of the committee on social media, claiming that the senator of Isiolo was just attacking the governor, and we seemed to be condemning that. An issue that shocked us as members because we do not participate in such matters. And so, through you, Speaker, it would be prudent for the governor to appear before this House to be able to answer, because it seems that all the committees, he has chosen not to appear. So the best solution, even before he appears to other committees, it should be for him to appear before this House and be able to answer to the question of why he has decided to disrespect this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kithuku, do you want to contribute to the allegations made at Isiolo County or the next motion?
This
Go
one,
ahead.
Faisal. Thank you very much, Honorable
And
Speaker.
Senator Mogeni, do you want to contribute to the allegations? Or is it the next motion? Okay, just one moment. Kithuku, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to congratulate the Senator for Isiolo for bringing this very important matter before this House, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to join also the Honorable Senators, my colleagues, in condemning the act done by the Isiolo Senator, who have decided not to be appearing before the different committees that he has been invited severally, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this House is mandated by the Constitution to take care of the devolution and its government. Honorable Speaker, it is absurd to see to it that the Honorable Governor have decided to deliberately not to appear to these committees that he has been summoned to appear so that, Honorable Speaker, he can answer to issues that are affecting the people of Isiolo. Honorable Speaker, I sometimes even fail to understand what is this that the governor is thinking, because the moment now you start to avoid the senators who are mandated by the Constitution to take care of the devolution, then it shows that, Honorable Speaker, that governor is not even aware of what he's doing. Honorable Speaker, I would wish that this House take very serious measures against this governor, because now, Honorable Speaker, the moment now we allow this, other governors who have the same attitude like him, Honorable Speaker, will one day also try to avoid the invitation by the senator. So, Honorable Speaker, I am of the opinion that this House take a very serious measure and discipline this governor who have deliberately decided not to be appearing before various committees of this House, Honorable Speaker. I sit in the Committee of Cohesion. I am a witness that we have been inviting this governor to appear, but he has deliberately refused to appear to answer to issues that are affecting the people of Isiolo, Honorable Speaker. I therefore support and urge this House, Honorable Speaker, to see to it that this governor serves as an example to other governors who has the same attitude like him. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Eric Mogeni.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, we are facing a very bad crisis. That a Senate of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is this afternoon discussing a conduct of a governor who has refused to respond to summons issued by the Senate. Mr. Speaker, even in the most advanced democracies, you can never, Senator of Isiolo,
refused to respond to summons of a House, more so a Senate. If you look at history, Mr. Speaker, you know what brought down President Richard Nixon. He was given summons by the Senate that was looking into his impeachment. The Senate ordered him to produce tapes that had some information on the Watergate scandal. He refused. He went to court. He waived immunity. The court sided with the Senate and directed President Richard Nixon to tender those tapes to the Senate. And it's the incriminating evidence that was in those tapes that made Richard Nixon to resign. So if a president of a superpower like United States of America can respect summons issued by an equivalent House, Senate of the US, what about this guy called Governor Guyo? I mean, we must rain down on this character. Mr. Speaker, we cannot accept the power, the authority of this House to be whittled down. We cannot accept. Senator Cherage is a lawyer, you know it. In fact, if you read the American Constitution, they don't have the kind of powers that we have as the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. The Constitution does not mention that the Senate of the US is like a high court, like the way ours mentions. So if need be, this is a guy that should be arrested and be brought here by none other than the commissioner. Because, Mr. Speaker, when you summon a governor, it's not a play game. You want to see some documents, the information you want to see, their records. How then can we be said to be a body that can oversight counties if we cannot have the privilege of asking for documents and they are brought to us, Mr. Speaker? I'm speaking with a lot of pain, Mr. Speaker, because this should not happen in a democracy, more so with a very progressive constitution like the one we have. I hope we are going to go a little bit further and even summon the Commissioner of Police to appear here and tell us why he cannot arrest this governor and bring him before this House. We must show, Mr. Speaker, that we have teeth. We are not a toothless bulldog. We must demonstrate to the governors, more so this governor, Guyo, governor of Isiolo, that this House has got teeth and the powers we have are powers equivalent to the High Court. Mr. Speaker, if I get summons from the High Court, I will even skip the session tomorrow. If I'm summoned to appear before the High Court tomorrow, I'll go running. And that's what happens in the US. When you receive subpoenas in the US, you stop everything and respond first to the Senate. In fact, it's worse not to go than even receiving summons. So I support, Mr. Speaker, that we need to do something. And I really support the passion with which the senator of Isiolo has fought to ensure that there is transparency, that she also does her role of oversight effectively against a governor who thinks that is law unto himself. I support, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senators. We proceed to the next order. Clerk.
Order number 11, motion consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills, and number 19 of 2024. Resumption of debate.
Resumption of debate. Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I want to support the Finance and Budget Committee for this report, and I agree with them that they should reject the amendments from the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I always get impressed by our Committee on Finance and Budget, and I can see a number of members are in the House. Mr. Speaker, I think this is authority. The last time they were supposed, Mr. Speaker, to cut down the money from 380 billion to 41 billion, they brought us a rejection that the county should get 4.1 billion, Mr. Speaker. So I support the Finance and Budget Committee that the amendments that were done by National Assembly is not in good faith. If National Assembly had good faith, they should have cut their own CDF money, because CDF as it is unconstitutional, is illegal, and it has been ruled even by the Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker. In fact, it is in my constitutional amendment of 2024 that I'm trying, Mr. Speaker, to salvage the hanging on of the CDF allocation under the budget, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the amendment of this, the upshot of this, Mr. Speaker, is in Article 202 of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, where in this point you are trying to additional funds to counties. Apart from equitable shareable revenue, there is additional funds, Mr. Speaker, there is own source revenue. So, Mr. Speaker, we must agree as a nation that what the Finance and Budget Committee has done is very impressive, Mr. Speaker. We should support them. Mr. Speaker, you are looking in the financial year of 2024-2025, counties were supposed to get additional funds of 61.9 billion, Mr. Speaker. But the National Assembly cut down to 46.5 billion Kenya shillings, Mr. Speaker. So counties will lose almost 15.4 billion, Mr. Speaker, which is very unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, it will affect many programs. Mr. Speaker, what we should be cutting is foreign travel, Mr. Speaker. Chai and mandazi and flowers and newspaper in our offices, Mr. Speaker, then reallocate those funds to more, Mr. Speaker. Because, for example, Mr. Speaker, if the counties were to lose 15.4 billion, for example, if they cut it to 46.5 billion, Mr. Speaker, counties like the one we were discussing in Isiolo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, Tarakanidhi, will lose 528.1 million that was supposed to be used to support the construction of county headquarters, Mr. Speaker. The reasoning behind the Senate was that these counties received the lowest allocation through shareable revenue, and therefore we thought by giving them additional grants, additional funds of 528 million will assist them to build county headquarters, Mr. Speaker. And I remember we did visit Isiolo. The headquarters was stocked, Mr. Speaker. We went to Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, with Senator Okongo Mugeni, and I wish he was listening. He was my lawyer when I was struggling in those days, Mr. Speaker. And he defended me, Mr. He took us to Nyamira County headquarters when Governor Amos Nyaribo, may his soul rest in peace, was still the governor, and we went under devolution committee. Oh, yeah, sorry, sorry. The late Nyagarama, sorry, Mr. Speaker, the late Nyagarama, he was still the governor, he passed on, Mr. Speaker. My apologies. I didn't intend, but it is a slip of the tongue, Mr. Speaker. Because yesterday in the charges of a matter that was yesterday, there was also confusion on which door to get into, Mr. Speaker. Even in mineral royalties of 1.1 billion. For example, in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we have mining in Kareba gold mine. We have mining across Nandi. These 1.1 billion mining royalties, Mr. Speaker, would have been significant in allocation and development of those areas, Mr. Speaker. You know, there is destruction of environment, there is pollution, Mr. Speaker. We should have allowed 1.1 billion, Mr. Speaker. Another important issue is road maintenance levy fund, Mr. Speaker, of 10.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, are you aware, Mr. Speaker? Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, are you aware?
Beatrice, what is your point of order?
Honorable Speaker, my point of order is on Standing Order 41 on the quorum during the proceedings of the Senate. Honorable Speaker, do we have a quorum to proceed as a House?
Honorable Senators, it seems we don't have quorum. Sergeant at Arms, please ring the bell for 10 minutes. Honorable Senators, having failed to attain quorum at the expiry of 10 minutes, the Senate stands adjourned pursuant to Standing Order 41-2A until tomorrow, 16th October 2024 at 9 a.m.
Hello, Pittsburgh! Are you fired up? Are you ready to go? It is good. It is good to be back in Pennsylvania. It is good to be back in Pittsburgh. I love Pittsburgh. You know, I love the people of Pittsburgh. I love the food in Pittsburgh. I don't usually do this, but this is a little bit of a Yelp rating. Just had some of Pamela's pancakes. I first had those like 10, 15 years ago when I was running. And I was all like, I need some of those pancakes this time out. And even though I'm from Chicago, some of you may know when I was a kid, I was a Steelers fan. So, and watching the Steelers this season, it seems I'm not the only guy from Chicago who likes being in Pittsburgh, because so far Justin Fields is doing pretty good. Now, before we get started, we have a little bit of work to do here. All right, so I want everybody to be, just settle in. We got some work to do. Before we get started, I did want to say that we are, heartbroken about the loss of life in Florida, North Carolina, states across the Southwest. We are thinking about people, families whose lives have been upended by the storms over the last couple of weeks. I could not be more grateful for the first responders and FEMA professionals who have put themselves in harm's way to try and help. It's times like this when you realize having honest, competent leadership in government really matters. It makes a difference. And today I'm asking you to vote for some of those leaders, including some folks we need working with your outstanding governor, who you just heard from, Governor Josh Shapiro. We need them in Harrisburg. So we need you to vote for your next Auditor General, Malcolm Kenyatta. Your next Attorney General, Eugene DePascale. Your next State Treasurer, Eric McClellan. And my buddy, your outstanding United States Senator Bob Casey. Here in Pennsylvania, there are 3 ways to vote. You can vote early, in person, at the county election office, or at a satellite office. You can also vote by mail. And if you need to figure out how to do that, just go to iwillvote.com PA to find a place to vote early or to request a ballot. And of course, you can vote at your polling place on Election Day, November 5th. But if you're at this rally, let's face it, you're probably voting unless you are 12. So you also have to help your friends and family make a plan to vote. And even if you're 12, you can do that. Talk to your mom and dad and aunts and uncles, because together we have a chance to choose a new generation of leadership in this country and start building a better and stronger and fairer and more hopeful America. Now, you've already heard tonight, this election's going to be tight, because there are a lot of Americans who are still struggling out there. They're still striving to make life better for themselves, for their families, and for their kids. And let's face it, as a country, we've been through a lot these last few years. We had a historic pandemic wreaking havoc on communities and businesses. Disruptions from the pandemic then caused prices to spike, and that put a strain on family budgets. And in many ways, it's felt like the aspirations of working people have taken a back seat to the priorities of the rich and the powerful. So I get it, why people are looking to shake things up. I mean, I am the hopey changey guy. So I understand people feeling frustrated and feeling we can do better. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you, Pennsylvania. I don't understand that. Because there is absolutely no evidence that this man thinks about anybody but himself. I've said it before. Donald Trump is a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. You've got the tweets in all caps, the ranting and the raving about crazy conspiracy theories. You have the 2-hour speeches, word salad, just, it's like Fidel Castro, just on and on. Constant attempts to sell you stuff. Who does that? Selling you gold sneakers and $100,000 watch and most recently a Trump Bible. He wants you to buy the Word of God, Donald Trump edition. Got his name right there next to Matthew and Luke. I mean, you could not make this stuff up. If you saw it on Saturday Night Live, you'd say, well, no, that's going too far. No, he's doing that. It's crazy. And the reason he does it is because all he cares about is his ego and his money and his status. He's not thinking about you. Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than a means to an end. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his country club buddies. Doesn't care if he costs more women their reproductive freedoms because it won't make a difference in his life. Do not boo. Vote. They can't hear your boos, but they can hear your votes. Most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between the quote unquote real Americans who support him and the outsiders who don't. Because having people divided and angry, he figures boosts his chances of being elected. And he doesn't care who gets hurt. Think about it. Just the other day, we learned that on January 6th, a couple years ago, Donald Trump was told that Mike Pence was in the Capitol about 40 feet from an angry mob chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And his response was, quote, "So what? Don't boo." If Donald Trump does not care that a mob might attack his own vice president, do you think he cares about you? Pennsylvania, we do not need 4 more years of that. We don't need 4 more years of arrogance and bumbling and bluster and division. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story, one that helps us work together instead of turning against each other. Pennsylvania, we're ready for a President Kamala Harris. And the good news is Kamala Harris is ready to do the job. This is a leader who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and a champion. Somebody who was raised in the middle class, who worked a summer job at McDonald's while she earned a degree, who believes in the values that built this country. Somebody who has served with distinction in every office that she has ever held. I think we probably had a fainting spell back there. So let's make space for the emergency folks. This happens sometimes. Everybody bend their knees a little bit. You've been standing for a while. You can dance if you want. I just suggested bend your knees. But she'll be okay. Kamala is as prepared for the job as any nominee for president has ever been. That's who Kamala is. And in the White House, she will have an outstanding partner in Governor Tim Walz. Tim is a veteran. He is a teacher. He's a coach. He's a hunter. He's been a great governor working with Democrats and Republicans to get stuff done. He can also take a vintage truck apart and put it back together again. You think Donald Trump can do that? For that matter, do you think Donald Trump has ever changed a tire in his life? I'm just trying to picture it. The point is, if you elect Kamala and Tim, they won't be focused on their problems, they'll be focused on yours. They understand that too many folks here in Pennsylvania and across the country are struggling to pay the bills. Even though wages are steadily growing and inflation is finally slowing, the price of everything from healthcare to housing to groceries, it's still too high. And that takes a real bite out of paychecks. It hurts. So the question is, who's really going to do something about it? That's what you should be asking yourself. Now, Donald Trump's plan is to do what he did last time, which was give another massive tax cut to billionaires and big corporations. And then, don't boo, I'm going to break you of this habit. And the reason some people think, well, I don't know, I remember that economy when he first came in being pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good because it was my economy. We had 75 straight months of job growth that I handed over to him. It wasn't something he did. I had spent 8 years cleaning up the mess that the Republicans had left me the last time. So just in case everybody has a hazy memory, he didn't do nothing except those big tax cuts. His other big economic plan now is to slap tariffs on everything, from food to TVs. Now, understand what tariffs are. Anything that's coming from that's made elsewhere and comes here, you slap extra money on top of it. And if other countries are cheating, in some cases, it makes sense because you want to have a fair playing field. But what he's proposing is basically a Trump sales tax that could cost the average family almost $4,000 a year. So if you're concerned about higher prices, that is not the way to get lower prices. That's going to come out of your pockets. You think prices are high now? Donald Trump's message basically is, you ain't seen nothing yet. All right, so that's as far as you can tell, that's his plan, right? Because it's not written down anywhere. When it comes to health care, you heard it in the debate. Donald Trump's got one answer. Ending the Affordable Care Act that 45 million people rely on. The other day, his running mate, J.D. Vance, you got to vote. The other day, his running mate had the nerve to say, Donald Trump salvaged the Affordable Care Act. I mean, Donald Trump spent his entire presidency trying to tear it down. And by the way, he couldn't even do that right. And now, 8 years after he was elected, when he was asked about what he was going to do, he says he's got concepts of a plan for how he'd replace it. Now, I want you all to think about this for a second. Let's say your boss gives you an assignment, a project. He says, I need this on Friday. And Friday comes around and he says, so, did you finish that project I asked for? And you say, well, I actually haven't started, but I have a concept of a plan. Or you could try it at home. Honey, did you do the dishes? I have a concept of a plan to do the dishes. How's that going to go over? If it wouldn't work for you, why in the heck should it work for the President of the United States? But the good news is, Kamala Harris, she doesn't have concepts for a plan. She has an actual plan to make your life better. To bring down the cost of things like groceries. She'll go after corporations that are jacking up prices. Just like she went after big banks and for-profit colleges when she was an attorney general in California. And believe me, when she does, nobody's going to want to stand in her way. I remember after the home mortgage crisis, Kamala pushed me and my administration harder than any other attorney general in the country to make sure homeowners got a fair settlement. It did not matter that she was pushing a Democratic administration. She was not going to let anybody stop her from winning as much relief as possible for the families who deserved it. And because of the work she did, those families got billions more than they would have otherwise got. That's the kind of president Kamala Harris will be. To lower housing costs, Kamala will cut red tape and work with governors like Josh Shapiro, as well as the private sector, to build 3 million new homes. And she'll give first-time home buyers up to $25,000 to help with the down payment. Plans, concrete plans. And for a lot of folks, that could be the difference between watching their dreams pass them by or finally owning a place of their own. To lower healthcare costs, Kamala already worked with Joe Biden to take on the drug companies and bring down the cost of insulin and hearing aids and more than 50 prescription drugs. And as president, she will never stop working to limit out-of-pocket costs and protect your care. That's who Kamala is. She's got a track record of doing it. And here's a big one. Instead of giving more tax breaks to billionaires and raising prices on working families, Kamala will give a tax cut to 100 million middle class and working people here in America. So, if you're a new parent, you could qualify for a $6,000 tax credit during the first year of your child's life. Because I don't have to tell a lot of you, raising kids is hard. And she wants to make it easier to afford stuff like a crib or a car seat or diapers. I remember buying diapers. I remember the first time I went in the store right after Malia was born. I was like, what? That's how much diapers cost? I remember changing diapers. You think Donald Trump ever changed the diaper? Yeah. I almost said that, but I decided I shouldn't say if you're starting a small business, Kamala Harris will give you a $50,000 tax credit to help you get it off the ground. That's who Kamala Harris is. That's what she stands for. So with Kamala, you've got actual plans. Trump, concepts of a plan. Now, if you challenge Trump to elaborate and enumerate his concepts, he will fall back on one answer. J.D. Vance does the same thing. Doesn't matter what the issue is, housing, healthcare, education, paying the bills. Their only answer is to blame immigrants. They want you to believe that if you let Donald Trump round up whoever he wants, by the way, and ship them out, all your problems will be solved. Now, we've got real issues at the border. We are a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. We have to make sure it's fair. There are communities at the border that can be overrun. We've got to actually solve a problem. But when I hear Donald Trump talking, I've got one question. As I recall, Donald Trump was president for 4 years. And if rounding up and deporting millions of desperate people and building the beautiful wall, and didn't matter whether some of those folks you rounded up were women and children, if that's the answer to everything, well, why didn't you solve the problem? Why were the number of immigrants basically the same when you left office as when you took office? I'll tell you why. Because he didn't have a real plan. He had talking points. He had concepts of a plan. And the plan was mean and ugly. And it was designed to enhance his politics and make people angry, not to solve the problem. You know what would actually help bring order to the border and fix our immigration system? The bipartisan deal that Kamala Harris supported, even though it's written by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress, the same bill that Donald Trump tanked on purpose because he thinks fear-mongering is how he's going to win this election. He told Republicans, even the ones who had originally supported, don't vote for it, because he doesn't want the problem solved. We don't need a president who will make problems worse just to make his own political circumstances better. We need a president who actually cares about solving problems and making your life better, and that's what Kamala Harris will do. And to help her do it, she will need a Senate full of serious public servants like Bob Casey. I'm going to talk about this man just for a second. I've known Bob for almost 20 years. I've watched his daughters grow up. I know his brothers and cousins, and let me tell you, there are a lot of brothers and cousins. And I can tell you that no one is more humble and more honest and more rooted in his community and has more integrity than Bob Casey. You know, in Washington, folks make a distinction between work horses and show horses. And Bob Casey, he's not a show pony. All the
watch, share, like.